Okay, so let's create a couple converters here, because remember in our note model we have the date, which will need a converter, as well as the UID. Let's start by creating a new package. Let's call this util for utilities. It's util as such. All right, and inside here we're going to create first class here. Let's call this date converter as such. And there we go. So what are we going to do here? First, we're going to create two functions. The first one is going to be the timestamp from date. So we're going to convert from the date into something that is not a date, right? In this case, it's going to be a long type. So I'm going to put all of that first. So first, I'm going to add this type converter as such, okay? And then create the function. You can name it whatever we want, but these names that make sense are important. So from date, in this case I'm going to pass in a date type, and I'm going to just return a long, because this is just going to be a time stamp, right? A Unix timestamp. I'm going to pass that there. Okay, and what I'm going to return in this case, I'm just going to return this date dot time. Okay, so from timestamp into the actual data time. So if you have it over here, this is going to be the type. Let's go ahead and have it over. Okay, there we go. And the next one I'm going to create is going to be the same thing at type converter again. So this is going to be date timestamp like this. And what we need to pass is this timestamp, which is going to be a long type, and we're going to return a date. I'm going to make this nullable like this, and I'm going to say return. In this case, now I'm going to return the actual date and pass in the time stamp that we're passing to create the actual date. All right, and I'm going to create another one we'll need for our UID. Say UUID converter. Okay, the same thing at type converter. So the first function here, say from UUID, right? And we're going to return a string. So return UUID and pass into string like this. Okay. And then the other one is going to convert the other way around. So again, at TypeConverter, and UID from string, like that. And we're going to return, of course, UID type. Okay, return from string and pass our string like that, right? So we have to do this. Now, how do we make it so that these converters are recognized when we create our table, so that Room will understand, okay, whenever we want then to add something to this table or database, we are going to use these converters to convert those types so that we don't have issues. That way Room doesn't complain as it has been doing. What we do now is we go to our database class. Remember that note database? So let's go ahead and get note database, first one. Here we can pass those type converters. Very good. So I can just go like this, say at type converters. So these will be passed along when the database is called to create itself. So I'm going to go ahead and say database. Oh, actually, this is going to be date converter. I'm going to say class, and then I'm going to pass UUID converter, and it's of course a class type. Oops, this has to be class lowercase like this. And that's it. So if you have any type that Room doesn't know that exists or doesn't know how to handle it, you will have to create those converter classes as such, right? From one form to another. And then you go to your database class that you created. In this case was an abstract class. And you just pass there at TypeConverters, and you can pass as many converters that you may need. That's it. Okay, let's go ahead and hopefully this will solve our problems because we want to see some action. We want to see things working. Let's clean everything up first. And let's go ahead and run once again. And fingers crossed, let's make sure this, let's hope that this works. And yet we have another problem. It says here, to use coroutine features, you must add KTX artifact from Room as a dependency. So Android Room KTX like this. Right. This is again another revelation here, ladies and gentlemen. This is good because we are learning that things don't always work as we want them. So I'm missing a few other things. That's the thing, because we're using Kotlin and we want to use Kotlin extensions here. We need to pass those as well. So what is that I need to pass? Let's go. We have Room. It says here Android X Room KTX. So I'm just going to put some here. There we go. This is what we need. So, all right, let's go ahead and sync. Now the beauty, as you see, it tells us whenever there is a dependency lacking, the compiler will always give us good hints for the most part. All right, let's see. Let's go ahead and run. We're getting close. As you see here, the app is running. Now, let's see if this actually works, because that's actually what, what we're looking for here. Let's say hello. And let's add, and voila, it's being added. I'm going to say new item. Next time, add. Everything is working. Let's see if we can delete by tapping, tap, and voila, it's done. Now I can get out of this app altogether and stop everything. The idea is that because we are persisting data using Room, if we run this app again, we should at least see one item being loaded. And as you see, there it is, that one item that is persisted was persisted and is looking really good. Now, the other thing you can notice here is that we got rid of the timestamp, meaning we don't see the time there when this was added. So we can go back to, I believe it's going to be our main. Let's get rid of all of these. You'll see that at the bottom because we were having those issues earlier. Yes, there we go. Now we can just go ahead and uncomment that. We still have some problems because this formatting is not going to work because we've changed a few things. No problem. What we need to do is, because we need to get whatever we're getting from our node, the enter date, and get a format that will get us what we want to see. So for that, we are actually going to create inside of our util here, let's create another folder or another file. Just going to be a file. Let's say call this utils, and here we're going to create a function. So I'm going to say fun and say format date. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the time. In this case, the times are going to come as a long because that's the timestamp. It comes as a long type, and then we want to get a string, so a formatted date. So I'm going to say val get the date, right? So I'm going to say date, and let's say this Java date there, and then I'm going to pass our time. So this will convert this long timestamp into an actual date. Okay, and then I'm going to use val format, and then I'm going to invoke this simple date format from Java text. And then here I'm going to pass the pattern because I want to instruct our formatter here what kind of or how am I going to show this date. So there's a lot of different ways to show a date. I'm going to use this one, EE, the D and MMM, and the H, MM, and then A is like this. So this is how I'm going to format our date. And then here I'm going to pass the locale also along. Say locale. Okay, get default. Okay, so default of the application. All right, and then I'm going to return, in this case, our format like this, dot format, and then pass our date. I can pass, let's see. So now let me just get rid of all of this. Let's just say format date and pass our note.entry date and just to time like this to get the actual time long, which is the type we need for our format date, and everything should be good. Okay, let's go ahead and run now. We should start seeing the date, and there it is, Sunday in October at 4:28 p.m. So if you add something else here, save, you can see now all of them have data attached to them. Okay, very good. All right, so we did it. So we're able to put together an entire application, a note application that's very simple in nature, but we learned a lot. At this point, one thing you can do is to make this even better, in a sense that you can change the user interface, perhaps make the text a little bit better or add more functionalities to it. Because you remember in our note view model, we have, for instance, the update. How do you update a note? So you can figure that out. Maybe make it so that when this is long pressed, then we're going to take all of the information, like the title and description, back to our fields, and then change this save to update, right? So the users know that they can update, and then the user will be able to update, of course, the title and the note, and then they update, and then of course they can see the changes like that. So there's a lot of things you can do, because now we have the infrastructure that's set up for us to do that. Okay, so it was a long journey, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a lot. So, and if there are things that are not really computing right now, it's okay to go back and rewatch these videos and maybe ask questions and really take the time to think and try to kind of study this section a little bit longer. We've talked about a lot of things, especially when it comes to how to structure your applications, as well as DI or dependency injection using Hilt. Okay, so take your time, and there's still a lot to learn. Of course, I couldn't put everything here in one section when it comes to Hilt and so forth, but it's a good start. One thing I would like you to think about or keep in mind is that, yes, it takes a little bit of work to set up Hilt and make sure that everything is good and put together that structure we talked about for our room database. But it's worth it. As you see, now it's way easier for us to extend this app, to do all sort of things, to make this app as complex as we possibly can make it, because we have that base infrastructure set up correctly. So think about that. It takes a little bit of work to set it up, but it's worth it, and you should always opt to do this way.